Hey, welcome! Today, we're all about sharpening our verbal toolkit. We're going to cover 20 really precise words that will help you build stronger, clearer, and more powerful arguments that are actually based on evidence. So, let's start with a question. We've all got opinions, right? But what does it take to turn a simple opinion into a genuine conviction? Something solid, something you can really stand behind with confidence.
Well, it really boils down to a couple of things. The quality of the evidence you have, and, just as importantly, the precision of your language. The right words are the tools we use to shape all that raw information into a case that's actually compelling.
So here's our game plan. We're breaking this down into 4 parts. We're going to start with words for gathering up all that evidence, then move on to words that help us find real clarity. After that, we'll look at the words that get into motive, and finally, we'll talk about the words for the reasoning process itself. All right, first things first. Step 1 of any investigation is just gathering the facts. And let's be real, you usually don't find just 1 or 2. You find a mountain of them. So these first few words are all about describing that sheer volume. Okay, let's get into the nuance here. You might have a myriad of different clues. A footprint here, a receipt there, a text message. That word implies a ton of variety. But if you have 500 copies of the exact same receipt, that's a plethora. It's an excessive, maybe even unhelpful amount. And here's another one of those subtle but really important distinctions. A problem could have manifold reasons, which just means there are many different factors contributing to it. But if a problem is multifarious, that suggests a deep, complex variety within those factors. See the difference? It's not just about how many parts there are, it's about how diverse and complicated they are. Sometimes the evidence you gather is just messy. When something you don't want is absolutely everywhere, the word for that is rife. So, for example, the early stages of an investigation might be rife with speculation, which tells you that the whole situation is widespread and kind of chaotic. So, we've got our mountain of data. Now what? Well, now we have to actually make sense of it. This next set of words is all about finding that clarity, that little spark of insight. Right, so both manifest and patent means something is obvious. The evidence could make a person's guilt totally manifest, for instance. But patent often has a slightly more formal feel, and you'll often hear it used to describe something that is just blatantly false, like a patent lie. Now here we're comparing 2 very different kinds of advanced knowledge. An analyst who somehow predicts a market crash, they're prescient. It's like they can see the future. But a 5-year-old who's reading at a high school level, that child is precocious. They're simply way ahead of the curve for their age. Oh, this is a great word. The key thing to know about perspicacity is that it's the ability to just get it. It's not about being book smart necessarily. It's about having that sharp, shrewd insight that just cuts right through all the noise and gets to the heart of the matter. Okay, a paradigm. Think of it like the mental box or the framework we're all using to understand our evidence. For centuries, the paradigm was that the sun revolved around the earth. When new evidence came along, it didn't just add a new fact, it completely shattered that box and forced a total paradigm shift. So, we've got our evidence and we're starting to get some insight. Now we have to ask the big question, why? This section covers the words that help us describe tendencies, motivations, and the actions that people take. This is such a useful distinction. You might have a penchant for spicy food. That's just a strong liking, no big deal. But if someone has a proclivity for bending the rules, well, that suggests a deeper, more ingrained tendency, and yeah, it often carries a bit of a negative vibe. Being pragmatic is all about results. It means you cut through all the theoretical fluff and just ask, okay, but what actually works right now? In any investigation, a pragmatic approach is going to focus on steps you can actually take, not some impossible ideal. You don't just get a key piece of evidence, you procure it. This word implies real care and effort. It feels much more formal and active than just saying obtain, which makes it perfect when you're talking about getting your hands on something vital. And that brings us to our final step, looking at the process of putting it all together. These last few words are all about the mental tools we use for reasoning our way to a solid conclusion. To ruminate is to think deeply about something for a long time. I love this word because it actually comes from the way a cow chews its cud, just turning something over and over and over again to fully digest it. It's the perfect word for that kind of deep, slow burn thinking. Now, this is a huge one, especially in legal arguments or academic papers. A preponderance of the evidence doesn't mean all of the evidence. It just means the overwhelming weight of it. The bulk of it is pointing in one direction. Okay, this next word is a little more conceptual, but it's super useful. To permeate means to spread all the way through something and influence everything. A feeling of doubt, for instance, isn't a hard fact itself, but it can permeate an entire investigation and color how everyone sees the actual facts. This timeline illustrates our next word perfectly. Penultimate isn't just a fancy way of saying second to last. It specifically implies the second to last step in an ordered sequence. It's a word that adds a ton of precision when you're describing a process. A modicum isn't just any small amount. It's a small but significant amount of something valuable, like truth or evidence or, as you see in the example, common sense. Sometimes even a modicum of evidence is enough to change everything. So let's do a quick recap of the process. You gather a myriad of facts, you use your perspicacity to see what's patent, you understand the motives or proclivities at play, and then you ruminate on it all until the preponderance of evidence becomes crystal clear. That's your toolkit. And there you have it. We've given you the tools. So now the real question is yours to answer. What hard facts will you go out and uncover? Think about it. What argument do you want to make? Use these words, build your case, and do it with precision.